Hello, everybody. Welcome to round 46. This is the WBC Talks, and we're going to talk about the fight of the century. It's going to be amazing. Yesterday, I watched it again.
You did?
I did, of course. I was washing the dishes, of course, and I watched it on my computer. Jill, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, Victor? How is everyone?
Everybody over here in New York, we're doing fine. I mean, you know, for months we've been basically the epicenter of COVID-19. The numbers are dropping, and everything is looking very promising right now in New York. How are the rest of you guys?
Bill, how are you?
Good, Victor. California, of course, has high numbers. I mean, we've got, 34 million people in California. So we have high numbers, but in my area, we're doing okay. Everybody's warning us that it's going to come back. There'll be another big wave in the fall. And God, I just hope we do everything to try and keep that down.
Thank you, Bill. Joel, how are you? It's good to see you.
You too, Victor. Me, I'm in Brooklyn, New York, in an area called Sunset Park, and things are fine. Yeah, I mean, things are. You know, you go out, you go to the store, you get some groceries. You know, and things are fine. I'm grateful that I got a lot of friends that I can have a lot of Zoom calls. It keeps me busy.
What was life like before Zoom? I don't know. I don't know. It's just been amazing.
Yeah, amazing.
Hello, my friends.
Hey, Mauricio.
How are you?
We cannot see you, Mauricio.
You're like an aberration over us.
Oh,
Right. Woo!
Hey, Mauricio.
hey, Jim. How are you, my dear friend?
Good to see you. You look great.
So
Thank
glad
you.
you're here. I mean, they're not here to see Victor and me. I don't want to say anything negative. You are a part of this.
Look at Randy. You look like a teenager.
Randy Cooper.
A teenage rapper.
How are you, El Presidente?
Very, very good. Very happy to see you all, and Uncle Bill looking sharp.
Oh, yeah. The only president that I recognize.
Is that your man cave, Uncle Bill?
It is. It
That's
is.
what-
I only spend 23 hours a day in this room.
That's good. Well, we have a beautiful show. I'm very excited about it. And I just cannot wait to hear what we have in store for the boxing world.
So I can kick it off.
Kick it off, Jill.
It's the 70s. Woo! Precisely March 8th, 1971. The golden age
But
of...
Jill, you weren't born then. So what you're going to tell us is out of the history books.
I'm channeling this. I'm channeling it.
Yes.
The crowd of celebrities filled Madison Square Garden in expectation of the fight of the century. Smoking Joe Frazier against the greatest, Muhammad Ali. And if you were not there, you just were not hip enough for the room. As the elite of society, dressed in more furs and jewels than in a sultan's closet, filled the arena. Norman Mailer, Frank Sinatra, Leroy Nieman, Woody Allen, Dustin Hoffman, Diana Ross, to name just a few. And Lancaster as commentator, and Don Dunphy and Archie Moore as play-by-play announcers. And the third man in the ring, who is that, James?
Well, the third man in the ring was my father, Arthur Mercanti. One of his big assignments, he was 51 years old at the time. He died 10 years ago at the age of 90. And it was a spectacular event. As you said, Jill, you teed it up very well. It was literally a who's who of the boxing world and the entertainment world.
Absolutely.
So Burt Lancaster was one of the ring announcers, and Frank Sinatra was an aspiring photographer, and he was the ring photographer that night.
So Ali and
He was excuse me, he was a photographer for Life magazine.
right here.
Yeah.
Life magazine, which was the magazine at the time.
Yeah, he got that picture right on the cover of it.
Hello, Don.
Hey,
Don
how are you?
Majeski. How are you?
My air conditioner went out here in the attic where my computer is, so it's a little sweltering. So I just gotta
Hey,
gear
Don.
up a bit. Okay, got plenty of water to rehydrate. No problem. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Done. Good, done.
I just want to say one more thing, because to me it is so amazingly remarkable that in a time before the internet, a time before cable, over 300 million people watch this fight globally. 300 million people. So next year in New York City with the WBC, the New York Athletic Club in Madison Square Garden, we are going to pay homage to this event and try to recreate the feeling of the greatest fight of the century. Now say whatever you want. Go for it. I'm being quiet.
Well, I can make a segue from there because I visited Mexico City probably a year and a half ago with some friends, and Mauricio came to meet me. We sat down in the lobby of the hotel we were in, and amongst other things, we hatched this plan to host the 50th anniversary of probably the greatest sporting event in history, with two undefeated heavyweights to come together. The world was watching, and we thought that it would be just a spectacular 50th anniversary celebration. It's one of the top 10 events in Madison Square Garden's history. When Madison Square Garden does their top 10 sporting events, Ali Frazier is always one of them. So between the relationship between the New York Athletic Club, which will be the venue, Madison Square Garden, Sirius Radio, the World Boxing Council, we figured that this will be a worldwide celebration of the sport of boxing and the history of what was going on at the time in the 60s and 70s. So thank you for that meeting, Mauricio.
And
Oh, it was I remember very well at the Hyatt Hotel, and you gave me some beautiful pictures, and you also gave me a piece of the Battling Siki grave.
Right.
Remember?
It was Don Majeski was involved in that.
We're there, sure. You know,
in
the
getting the-
headstone is still in Flushing Cemetery. The actually headstone for the grave is there. So if you go out, you'll see Siki or Louis Fall. And you can go
Right.
there. Go to memorial now. The body has been removed, but not the actual gravestone.
Right. So one of the burial plaque, which was, cracked in half, but it was given to me by the cemetery because the WBC and 𝗧𝗔𝗟𝗡𝗗 for the nation of Africa wanted to return the remains of Battling Siki to Senegal because he didn't get a proper burial, and it was a beautiful thing the WBC did. I helped them from the legal standpoint, and I presented to Mauricio that plaque from the grave, which is a real major piece of history.
Yes, is Grant. Oh, there he is.
Oh, Grant.
Technical difficulties in California. Sorry about that. I think we got a bit of the COVID on the computer.
beautiful, you had a beautiful sound to your voice. It was kind of oh well, you're here.
Elvis is in the building.
Elvis is in the building.
So, Don, were you at the fight?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yes. I remember I said I bought a ticket. It was $25 for the ticket. And I had to pay $10 more to a ticket broker, $35. And I remember going over my mind, an extra $10, $35. That's a lot to spend. But boy, I'm glad I didn't. I did, because it was a memory that lasts forever. It was an unbelievable event. Yes, absolutely. And the buildup, as I said, it took it really started like 4 years earlier when Ali had his last fight at the Garden, the old Garden on 49th Street, and he stopped 𝗧𝗟𝗡𝗨𝗡. And from that point on, Joe Frazier started coming into his own. He really made himself when he stopped 𝗧𝗔𝗟𝗨𝗡𝗗, who had never been, had never failed to go to distance before that match. And he stopped him in the 4th round, and that sort of established Frazier. And then when Ali was unable to defend the title, he had his championship withdrawn from him by most of the commissions and the WBA at the time for not going in to the selective service and not serving in the armed forces. He appealed that decision, of course. And while he was appealing, there was a WBA tournament set up with 8 fighters. And New York declined to go into it. And when they opened the new building, they needed a big event. So they had Joe Frazier fight Buster Mathis for the New York State version of the title. And Mathis had beaten Frazier twice in the Olympic trials. He was undefeated against lesser opposition. So the WBA tournament went forward, ending up with Jerry Quarry and Jimmy Ellis fighting in Oakland in April of 68, I think it was, right?
68, right.
68. And then Ellis won and Frazier beat Mathis, and then Frazier beat Manuel Ramos in June in the Garden. And Ellis had this very controversial win over Floyd Patterson in September. And Ellis broke his nose.
Frazier was the WBC champion.
He was. Well, I'll tell you what happened. And people
the WBC did not order any tournament.
No.
But eventually, since Ali was not fighting, what is your intake on that?
Well, what actually happened is so Frazier beats Bonavena, and it led up finally to the Ellis fight. He beats him in February. Coming into Ellis, he was the WBC champ. He was WBA champ. WBC hadn't done anything yet, still recognized Ali. But Ali made a statement in newspapers and said that he was retiring. He wasn't going to fight again. Because if after pursuing it for 2 years, trying to get fights everywhere, he couldn't box out of the country. They tried to fight on Indian reservations. They tried to box in different places. In that time, many states didn't even have state commissions. They had civic commissions. But the politics of the time, he couldn't do it. So he basically said, I relinquish the title. And so WBC recognized the winner of Ellis and Frazier for the championship. Then Frazier subsequently stopped Bob Foster. In the meantime, Ali was allowed to come back. The political climate had changed. He beat Quarry in October. Frazier knocked out Foster in November. Ali stopped Bonavena December 7th in the Garden in the 15th round. And they fought 90 days later, March the 8th. So it was a buildup. The anticipation by the fans was so incredible. At that point, they just wanted this fight so badly. And in the space of Ali coming back from October to March, was about 6 months. He took a fight, Frazier took a fight, Ali took another fight, and they made the match 90 days after the Bonavena fight, which would have been almost impossible to conceive of today. You see how hard it is for us to make these super fights. Pacquiao, Mayweather took years, and there's no talk. They didn't go back for a rematch. And you have great fights. It just takes forever to, get them together. And I think it was remarkable just how quickly those guys did fight once Ali got licensed again.
Randy, were you at that fight?
I was in my last year of college, and I was considering getting one of those tickets, those $20 tickets. The thing is, I was waiting for my friends, and they were uncertain about getting it. And by the time I decided, they were sold out. So we went to a movie theater in the town of Hempstead on Long Island. And James, you'll remember this theater. It was called the Calderon Theater.
Yeah, remember it well, yeah.
And it was a very popular movie theater, sat around 1,500 in the theater. And I went in there with all my friends, and we paid about $20 for the ticket. And there were about 8 of us. I was the only one, I think, no, not the only one, but we were in the minority rooting for Joe Frazier. The place was absolutely for Ali. But you couldn't even hear yourself think when the two of them got into the ring. And, certainly over the years, I learned so much about that. Do you realize that the Vietnam War was raging at that time? And when they got into the ring, the war ceased. There was no more Viet Cong shooting at Americans. Americans weren't shooting at the Cong. Everything came to a stop, basically, on this planet like it is now. And the fight was on, and it really was maybe the greatest sporting event of all time.
Wow. How about you, Uncle Bill? Did you go to that fight?
No, Mauricio, I had the pay-per-view rights in the state of Nebraska which would be Omaha and Lincoln. And Lincoln was where the University of Nebraska is. And we had a big, where they played basketball, the arena where they played basketball. We had that for pay-per-view, as well as the biggest theater in Omaha. And I was at the University of Nebraska, and we sold out. There were about, I don't know, 6,000 people there, what it would hold. And most of them were college students. And it was wild. But what I remember most about that fight is, you know, kind of being in the publicity business, it got more page one, section one, front page publicity than any fight in modern history. It was amazing. The stories were not in the sports section, they were on page one.
Page one.
There was so much attention, pardon me, paid to this fight that very, very frankly, if I was rating the fight itself on the 10 scale, I would rate it as 8.5. That's just my personal rating. It was a good, very good fight. But what made it such a great, great, great event was the drama and the publicity and the events of the time, and Ali making his comeback, and two undefeated world heavyweight champions fighting each other. And it was just an incredible buildup and a very good fight.
Yeah, I would say they were both two Olympic gold medalists as well. Frazier in '64, Ali in '60. The fight was originally, they were talking about doing it in Yankee Stadium, or at one point the LA Coliseum, because Jack Ken Cook was one of the primary financiers of that. And they rushed it into March because Ali, you have to remember, he's still appealing his conviction for draft evasion. And it went before the Supreme Court in April, and they overturned the conviction. But so they had to really rush this thing, which is quite amazing when you think under that kind of a cloud. And to get back to where Bill was running Nebraska, I mean, they had this, I remember in Cincinnati, they had in baseball stadiums this thing on closed circuit, drawing 30,000 people, selling out arenas like you would go to a real fight, big arenas that sell 15, 18,000 people, like the Olympia in Detroit or a Chicago Stadium, which you would draw for a big championship fight live. They were selling out for a closed circuit event. It was absolutely phenomenal.
All around the world.
Jerry Ferencio actually put the fight together, and he invested, I think, $1.5 million. I later worked for him, and Jerry took it to. They were each guaranteed $2.5 million for where 1971. That was absolutely unheard of. $2.5 million a piece. So Jerry put up $1.5 million. That's what he had to invest. He went to Jack Ken Cook, who owned the Los Angeles Lakers and the Los Angeles Kings hockey team. He went to him, and Cook put up the rest of the money.
Can you guys picture? I mean, of course, there was no internet. We had newspapers all over the place and magazines. Can you imagine if that was today, if Ali was here today and Frazier was here today, what would be going? Well, again, forget this pandemic. Let's say there was no pandemic. How big this fight would be? Does anybody have any idea of how much they would get? Because it certainly wouldn't be $2.5 million. I would say that each one of them with pay-per-view and everything would probably get the numbers that we've heard, like with Floyd Mayweather. They'd probably get $200 million apiece.
Oh, Bob Arum said it would be $1 billion fight today. I'll tell you an interesting sidelight. In those days, almost no one was made a very big guarantee. It was a guarantee to make sure you had something. But as Bill said, that $2.5 million apiece was so overwhelming. Was Teddy Brennan had offered them $1 million apiece, traditional offers, against 30% each of the gross. And he was always bringing up, he said, that fight grossed $20 million. Had they taken my offer, they got $6 million apiece, which is one of the reasons why they never fought the rematch. There was such bickering that they actually felt they were underpaid for the fight, which is an incredible, unbelievable offer, a guarantee up front. But when you look at against a percentage of the gross, they were underpaid. I would say in today's dollars, it'd probably be $250 million a piece. Figure out what you would pay for a house in 1971 compared to what you pay, today.
Oh, absolutely.
Hey, Grant, I know.
And the general admission ticket
Mm.
would be, instead of $20, you would add several zeros to that.
The program would cost $100.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You're not kidding.
Yeah.
Ask 𝗧𝗔𝗟𝗞𝗦. Yeah, Jay will tell you.
Grant, I know you have a
Incredible.
connection to the fight. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, obviously I was only 5 or 6 years old when it happened. But obviously I grew up with just the fight of the century since I got into boxing at, I guess, about 8 years old. And I don't think I've been blessed thanks to my my papa, 𝗧𝗔𝗟𝗞𝗦, who was lovely enough to take me to so many great big fights, like being there for when Mike Tyson won the title and so many other great fights. But I don't think even to this day, you know, as we talk about big fights like Mayweather, Pacquiao, and like all the big mega fights that we've had, pay-per-view fights, I don't think that anything has even scratched the surface of being as close to this event. As Randy said, when there's no pay-per-view and no this and no social media, it's just incredible. I mean, to this day, it's just such a monumental event that, as Randy pointed out about Vietnam, it wasn't just Vietnam. There was wars in the Middle East and people fighting in all kinds of places, and everybody agreed to put their weapons down to watch the fight and then go back to fighting. I guess that speaks for itself, the magnitude of what these two men and this fight meant to the world. So my connection to it is, by the grace of God, I own, along with a partner, the gloves that Muhammad Ali wore that night in the fight of the century. And I guess they, based on everything we're all kind of talking about here, might be the most important pair of gloves that were ever used in a fight. So that's my connection.
It's a good connection. And James, you were at the fight, right?
I was actually at the Calderon movie theater where Randy was.
Really?
I saw you there.
Yeah. And then we went home. I have 3 brothers, and we waited for my father to come home after the fight. And we waited and we waited and we waited until we just couldn't wait anymore and went to sleep. But the interesting thing was, the next morning when we got up and we went into our bathroom, there was my father's referee shirt with blood, you know, all over his sleeves and his collar from separating the fighters and getting blood on his hands. They didn't wear gloves back then, the referees. And for some reason, he always liked to soak his bloody referee shirt in the boys' sink.
And that shirt today, it's sold on the internet for $10,000 or more, huh?
Yeah.
Valley and Frazier, yeah.
Right.
Upstairs.
Well, he did donate his bow tie from that fight and the boxing shoes he wore, my father, for that fight, and his pants to the Hall of Fame in Canastota. So the Hall of Fame has a display of my father's outfit for that night. But it was spectacular. And one of the things I remember is, and you can see it now when you watch the fight, is that he was telling Ali, you know, he's doing like this, Ali, stop talking, Ali, because Ali was really trying to get into Joe Frazier's psyche and get into his head. And at one time, if you listen to the fight, Don Dunphy, the ring announcer, says, Arthur Mercanti is telling Muhammad Ali to stop talking. I can't believe Muhammad has time for that. You know, time to be talking. And what, you know, the interesting stories from inside the ring that I have is, you know, we talked a lot about outside the ring, but inside the ring, my father, I always ask my father, you know, what was Muhammad Ali saying, you know, that you asked him to stop talking. And he was saying that to Joe Frazier, every time he went into a clinch, he would say, you're in the ring with God tonight, Joe. You're in the ring with God tonight. And Joe Frazier would step back and say, God, if you're in the ring tonight, you're in the wrong place.
Joe.
Jim, let me
Yeah.
show you the book that I have from your father. And in the picture in the front is this one.
Yeah, right. That's my father's book, Inside the Ropes. And I'm glad, and Victor, I'm glad you did that, because They just published the same book in German, and look at the German.
Yeah, but I was thinking exactly in the bow tie that you mentioned. It's right here. It is a little
Right.
twisted, but it is there.
And that right now, that the Hall of Fame has that. And when we do the 50th anniversary celebration at the New York Athletic Club, we're hoping that, you know, Grant will have those gloves there on display, and I'll have my father's outfit there on display, and we can really get some beautiful memorabilia. And as you can see behind me, I have a beautiful picture of the fight, and here's a picture of Muhammad Ali that not many people have seen, waiting to come out, not for Ali Frazier, but for another fight, from behind. That's a cool shot, right? Yeah.
Oh, it is.
There'll be a lot of memorabilia for this 50th anniversary at the New York Athletic Club on display. It'd be fantastic.
It's going to be a great
You
event.
know, go ahead, Jill.
No, I was just going to say, it's going to be a great event. I mean, it's going to be it's going to be one of the best events in New York City. What a way to wake the city up. I mean, that would be amazing with the timing of this, that God willing, everything goes back to normal. And then March, boom, we do one of the most exciting events in New York City's history. It takes us everywhere from civil rights to boxing to everything that you can think of is wrapped up in that event. And it would be quite amazing.
Yep.
To start off that way.
Is this going to be a one-day event? Is it going to be a weekend event? Is it going to be like an expo with a lot of fighters coming in? How will this be handled?
Right now, the way it's played out is that there's going to be a dinner at the New York Athletic Club, which will lead up to the fight itself being showed at Madison Square Garden on Sunday. And we're going to really try to recreate that feeling, and Grant is going to be a big part of that. Right, Grant?
This is correct.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to tell all
To
of
answer your question, then,
Go ahead.
also to add to what Jill said, Randy, it's going to be like a weekend extravaganza with a Madison Square Garden, huge, hopefully heavyweight boxing championship on Saturday night, a gala dinner, black tie dinner at the New York Athletic Club, probably Friday night or Sunday night. I forget what we decided on that, Jill, Mauricio.
For the dinner, Sunday for the film. Monday for the film. I think Friday for the dinners, Monday is the film.
So Friday night, there'll be a gala celebration dinner, 50th anniversary. Saturday night, Madison Square Garden, all centered around the fight, the WBC, Madison Square Garden, Sirius Radio, the New York Athletic Club. And it's a beautiful venue. Let me tell you one more quick story about the connection that the New York Athletic Club has to this fight. At the time, my father was on the board of governors of the New York Athletic Club. And before the fight, he wasn't assigned by the commissioner of boxing at the time. I think his name was, Don would know because Don knows everything. I think his name was Dooley.
Right? That would be Dooley, I think.
Edwin Dooley. He called my father at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and he says, "Arthur, I'd like to assign you to the boxing card tonight at Madison Square Garden," but didn't tell my father which fight. And there was, I think, 5 or 6 fights, including Don, right? Muhammad Ali's son fought, or Frazier's
His
son?
brother, Rahman Ali, fought Dan McAlinden on the show.
Yeah, his brother, right. So, we all knew that my father was assigned to the fight, and we were all very hopeful that he was going to get Ali Frazier, but they didn't let him know. All the referees all sat down, and Commissioner Dooley went to each referee and said, okay, and finally got to my father, and he says, "Arthur, you have the main event," because they didn't want to get anybody to get to the referee and protect them from bribes and any type of outside influence. So my father didn't really find out he had that fight till probably 5:30, 6 o'clock when he reported to the Garden. And before that, before he went to the Garden, he was in the tap room of the New York Athletic Club. He had a hamburger, French fries, and a Coke at the New York Athletic Club. and he jumped in a yellow taxi, went to Madison Square Garden, and 2 hours later, he was in the ring with Ali and Frazier.
Amazing.
Hey, Don, I thought you said you might have a surprise for us today.
You know, I tried to get Paul Simonetti, who actually boxed on the card, but he said to me he's not that capable with the computer, so he was afraid. I tried to send him the link. He may join us yet, so we'll see if he can pick it up and come on into us. But he's looking forward to this celebration, by the way. He fought on the card. So he's one of the few living guys. We know that there's also John Clohessy, Dan McAlinden, unfortunately, is in a nursing home, but Rahman Ali is still with us, and we're trying to get the rest of them. There's Thomas Koshan and Charles Emperor Harris. If we can find them, you know, I'm sure we'll have them at the celebration. Joel, are you going to do a mural or a painting in conjunction with the event, or how's that going along?
Well, Don, I was honored to be able to do the save the date. And yeah, I think I'm gonna do a couple of wonderful pieces that everybody can choose from. It might be a nice idea to ask even some other artists. There's a Richard Sloan, who was actually, I mean, he's probably the preeminent boxing artist, who was Joe Frazier. He was like a son to Joe Frazier.
Oh, okay.
So I'm sure Richard will probably do something. I'll be doing a couple of beautiful pieces.
Great.
And it's such a big event that it would be nice to, you could reach out to some other artists and ask if they'd like to do a piece. But yes, I'm thinking obviously within my style, very colorful and very bright, something that really captures that incredible night.
Is there a sculptor we could speak to that would do something? Because I know you're doing the painting, the visual. Any guy who does sculpture and something like that would be, something good.
Yeah, I've got some incredible. I've got a friend of mine who's an unbelievable sculptor. Well, maybe I could ask her to do a pair of boxing gloves or something like that. Yeah, the art will be fantastic. And I was actually just looking at some of the Leroy Nieman paintings that he did before and after the events. And my style for Leroy Nieman was actually one of my motivating reasons why I started painting. And I love painting in color, so I love all of his work. But
Hey, Joel, I'm glad you said that, because I don't know if you can see this Leroy Nieman right there.
Oh, wow. He's my favorite artist. He's my absolute favorite artist.
That's an original Nieman on canvas that Leroy Nieman presented to my father when my father retired from boxing. I don't know if you can read the inscription.
What does it say?
To my friend Arthur Mercanti, Leroy Nieman.
Wow.
3/8/1971. And I was always wondering if you can see my father's finger, right? Pointing.
Yes.
And
I love it.
I was always wondering why, Leroy Nieman was famous for emphasizing a certain something in a photograph.
Yes.
Whether it was like a finger or a golf club or whatever he painted, he emphasized something.
Yeah.
And I never knew why. I thought it was a mistake, why my father's finger was so long in the picture. And I asked him one time before he died, and he said, because that was your father's trademark. If you, in many, many pictures that you see of my father, he's pointing his finger, at the fighter. Well, look, here's one here. Look how he's pointing.
Wow. That's a great picture.
So Leroy Nieman captured that finger.
Incredible. Jim, I sat next to your father in a place called Townsville in Australia. Costa Zoo was defending his title. And we were at a little restaurant, and I turned and he said to me, he's Arthur Mercanti. And then I said, you got it, because, I was brought up in a boxing family from the age of 4 years old. And I said, wow, you Arthur Mercanti. It was a big night for me because you're such a famous ref. But I met him in a tiny little hole in the wall restaurant in Townsville, Australia. when Costas view was fight. This was one of the paintings that he did for after the fight.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That's great.
And you can just look at the energy. He captured he just captured it, man. People were just going insane.
That's a bit of a parlor game. Pick out the celebrities in that painting. You know, people do that all the time. You can see them because he had a unique way of portraying people. Yeah.
In any case, Jim, that painting of yours is worth a pretty penny.
Absolutely.
I'm going to start becoming a bit more friendly with you. Maybe.
And it's original. There's only one.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Listen, some of Leroy Nieman's pieces have gone for millions of dollars. So I don't know who owns the originals, but but art is definitely played a big role in promoting this fight as art in all spheres of life. So yeah, Don, I'm going to be doing some magnificent pieces. I already did one of Ali. With his fist out, and I'm doing the opposing Frazier piece, but it's not ready yet. So, but I'll be sending it there. The art's going to be gorgeous.
I know is that you're working with the WBC, you're working with Madison Square Garden, the New York Athletic Club, and with Grant and Madison Square Garden. This is going to be an unbelievable event. It's going to be unbelievable. It's going to be over the top. People are going to walking into the Madison Square Garden, and what are they going to feel, Grant?
Oh, it's going to be amazing, and I think that the New York Athletic Club is going to be a great event. Obviously, you know, it plays a part in the history, which I wasn't that aware of. I know that it obviously has some great history, and of course, I remember you know, so many great memories, Jim, with your dad. In fact, your dad and I filmed a Coke commercial where I won the Olympics for boxing, and he was the referee in the commercial. So we have we have a lot of wonderful history, and he was a part of my childhood and stuff. And you know, I just found I was just looking. I'm here in my office, and I just found these, which I thought, being that everybody's cut was some were showing. This was actually the original pennants that were sold at the fight.
Wow.
So, there was the Ali, and there was the Frazier.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Keep those away from Mauricio.
Wow.
Now.
Yeah, so we'll keep those those will be part of the display, along with all the other great stuff that we're planning, and we want it to be an unforgettable weekend, an unforgettable event, and I believe that if we all work together as a team, that we can recreate that amazing night of March 8, 1971, and, you know, bring the whole spirit of that night back to life again.
And I will add this, and James, you mentioned it about Sirius XM Radio, where I've been for the last 11 years with Jerry Cooney. Anything you guys need as far as publicity, we'll be talking about it. We'll do any special shows on it, whatever you want. And in addition, Boxing Illustrated was just sold. And I think, Mr. President, I think you know this, to a business guy by the name of Tom Ficara. So Boxing Illustrated online is actually being, it's coming back again. And they just put on Boxing Illustrated on radio, which I am the host of every Saturday. So you have Boxing Illustrated online. I'll be writing stories about it. We'll be talking about it on Boxing Illustrated on radio and Sirius Radio, all yours, anything you want for this incredible event. James, I'd love to have you on as a guest in studio when we get back, you, Jerry, and me, and Jill and Mauricio and Grant, all of you guys. You're in town, and Don, of course, you know, you're in studio. Let's talk about it. We can't talk about it enough.
Hey, Boxing Illustrated gave me my first job in 1970. I went to work. Bert Sugar just took over the magazine, and Lou Eskin actually hired me. So that's a couple of years ago.
Yeah. You know, I gotta tell you a quick story. You know, we mentioned before that Edwin Dooley was the commissioner at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in 1988, when I became commissioner, that's when I became friends with Muhammad. And every time he'd come into New York, we'd get together for breakfast, lunch, usually no dinners. It was always breakfast and lunches. And I'd sit in his room, just me and Ali. And at one luncheon that I went to where I presented him with a humanitarian award, I told the story of this 18-year-old kid on Long Island who was a big fan of Muhammad Ali, who was very angered when the New York State Athletic Commission and its chairman, Edwin Dooley, stripped Ali of the title for failure to step forward for induction. That was in 1967. Well, that same guy, Edwin Dooley, was the one who was there front and center for all the picture taking. And I later asked Ali, what was your feelings for Edwin Dooley? And, you know, this could stay right here, if you will, but he said, I never liked him. He had some bad feelings for Edwin Dooley because he pleaded with him not to take his license from him and everything else, but they said he can't fight in New York, and then everybody else stopped him. And it was something that Ali really did not forget. And then now he's back and he's fighting Joe Frazier, and there's the same Edwin Dooley smiling front and center between both fighters. So Ali never had any real love for Commissioner Dooley.
Yeah. You know, another interesting thing is back.
I'm gonna paint a beautiful pair of Grant boxing gloves as part of this whole thing. I've actually never painted a pair of gloves, and I'm actually gonna really enjoy it. I'm looking forward to it.
Sounds great to me. Thank you. It'd be an honor.
Yeah.
And
You know, the magnitude of Ali, probably the three biggest fights in modern history were all Ali fights. One was the one that we're talking about today. And then the Rumble in the Jungle with my guy, George Foreman, in 1974. And then the Thrill in Manila, which was Joe and Ali in Manila. And I don't know, I can't think of any fights that worldwide were any bigger than these three fights.
No, and we can't forget the whole richness of the whole civil rights situation and the music of the time. The music of the time was just so exciting and added to it. I think it's just the most exciting piece in the world to recreate. What was Joe Frazier's group name?
Smoking Joe and the Bandits?
No, the
Knockouts.
Smoking Joe and the Knockouts.
Smoking Joe and the Knockouts. Right.
Well, we got to have.
Well, maybe they're still around. They can revive. They didn't have much of a career to begin with, but I guess what is left of it, they can revive, you know.
The one song that he played at every venue, Smoking Joe and the Knockouts, was Mustang Sally.
Oh.
Wow.
He loved that song, Mustang Sally. He played it every time.
I remember him doing knock on wood all the time. You better knock. Pop, 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 pop.
The Lobo Band, but we've got Larry Holmes as the lead singer, and I bet he could do a great Mustang Sally. What do you think?
Yeah. If we have time, I'll tell you a quick story. Jill, you brought up the civil rights movement back in the 60s. I can tell you how Muhammad Ali got his name the greatest.
Please.
I don't think even Don Majeski knows this one.
No, I don't.
Well, he had just come off the Olympics. He won the Olympics in 1960, I believe it was. And the movie producer, David Susskind, approached my father to be the technical director for the movie Requiem for Heavyweight. And remember, Anthony Quinn was playing a washed up fighter, something Rivera. Was it Mountain Rivera? And Mickey Rooney was in the film, and Jackie Gleason. And Jackie Gleason played the cigar smoking promoter of Requiem for Heavyweight. So David Susskind said to my father, Arthur, can you get us the next, who you think will be the next heavyweight champion of the world? Because we'd like that person to be in the movie, to be the fighter that dethrones Mountain Rivera, Anthony Quinn. So my father said, yeah, it's going to be this, I'm sure it's going to be this young beautiful fighter named Cassius Clay that just won the Olympics. And David 𝗧𝗟𝗡 said, okay, can you get to him? My father says, yeah, I think so. So my father shows up at David 𝗧𝗟𝗡's office in Manhattan with Cassius Clay. David 𝗧𝗟𝗡 comes out, meets Cassius Clay, calls my father in first and said, Arthur, the fighter I wanted, it calls for a white part. Remember, this is in the 64. And my father said, well, David, you didn't say you were looking for the next white heavyweight champion. You said you were looking for the next heavyweight champion. And it's going to be this kid, Muhammad Ali. If you go meet him, you're going to love him. David 𝗧𝗟𝗡 went out and met Cassius Clay, fell in love with his personality, and cast him for the movie Requiem for Heavyweight. Now, how he got the name The Greatest. When they would meet every morning at the studio, Jackie Gleason was a pretty heavy drinker. And he brought his seat. Remember, he was doing a show then, and he was a director. He was also a director, and he had his director's chair. And on the back of his director's chair, it said The Great One. And that was Jackie Gleason's moniker. He was the Great One.
The Great One.
Right. So when all the cast, Anthony Quinn, Mickey Rooney, my father, were all there 8 o'clock in the morning, ready for filming, Jackie Gleason wouldn't walk in until 9:30, 10 o'clock, all disheveled, like he slept in his clothes, hung over. And Cassius Clay was sitting in his director's chair. And Jackie Gleason would come over with his cigar and say, kid, you're in, he didn't know Cassius Clay. He said, kid, you're in my seat. Get out of my seat. And Cassius Clay said to him, he said, when you get here on time, Mr. Gleason, you'll be the great one. Until then, I'm the greatest.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Great anecdote.
What a great story.
And that story stuck because every morning Jackie Gleason was late and Muhammad Ali was sitting in his seat saying, I'm still the greatest.
That's a great story, Jim. Wow.
Good story. Mauricio, was he at that fight?
Sorry,
Go
Jill?
ahead, Jill.
Was Don Jose at that fight, Mauricio?
Yes, he was at the fight, and that fight was always his favorite ever.
Mm-hmm.
That was his reference for boxing forever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you a quick Jackie Gleason story. This will be
You see
very
this
fast.
cartel? It says Muhammad Ali, aka Cassius Clay.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Still call him Clay in those days. Most people still referring him as Clay. There's a lot of controversy about that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. That's great.
So you were saying about the story, the quick story on Gleason, Bill?
Jackie Gleason, I've been in a bunch of movies, little bit parts. And the first one I was ever in was The Sting 2. It was the sequel to the Academy Award winning Sting. And it was a pretty good movie, say 3 stars. And Jackie Gleason was the star of the movie. And I have to tell you that of all the movies I've been in, Jackie Gleason was the biggest jerk I ever co-starred with. Oh, I mean, a terrible guy. Just an awful, awful, awful guy. So he was the greatest at being a jerk.
So Cassius Clay had it. He had it right. He had it right.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. It's another interesting thing from back then is that if you look at some of the pictures, especially when Ali went down, and you see the people at ringside, that they're smoking cigars, in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Smoke-filled room. That's boxing,
Yeah.
Everybody wore a suit and a tie. Most of the men had on hats. It was a different world.
Yeah.
Culturally different world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anytime they made a boxing movie, they would really overdo it with the smoke machines. They would put so much smoke in that picture that it was amazing that you could even see the ring. I mean, they really overdid it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We were just
Oh,
looking.
I have smelled a lot of smoking in Barclay Center now.
Oh, yeah, but not cigarettes, not tobacco, my friend.
My God,
Kind of smoke.
Right.
it's incredible. I mean,
Hey,
people-
Jim, I just found this. I don't know if you guys can see that.
Oh, yeah.
There was your dad and I when we were filming this commercial back in the 80s.
Ooh,
Wow.
Ways. That's incredible, Grant. Wow.
Do you still have that commercial, Grant?
Yeah, somewhere.
Wow. I'd love to see that. Wow.
Yeah. Yep. So that was a national Coca-Cola commercial. So that was an honor to be with your dad of
Yeah,
You
if
know,
could,
when
if you could get my
when
my
Ali
phone number
won-
from Jill and send me that snapshot. I'd love to show my kids that. That's fantastic.
absolutely. We'll do that
Yeah.
for sure.
Thank you.
Jim, there's a well-known attorney in New York, 𝗧𝗔𝗟𝗡𝗗 Jr. Is he related to 𝗧𝗧𝗡𝗗, who was one of the judges of in the fight that night? I see he's quite prominent around New York, 𝗧𝗧𝗡𝗗.
Yeah, you know what? I know the name. He's a famous criminal lawyer in New York, but I never made the connection to the judge. No.
It could be. It'd be interesting to get him involved, or invite him to the ceremony if there's something. I know Bill Recht was the third judge. I don't know what about. He was a bit older. But,
Yeah, good point.
Dalla might be involved. There are only two judges in a scoring referee in those days.
Right.
And your
Yeah.
ringside physician, Dr. Vincent Nardiello.
I think he had passed his prime. I think it was the climber. Dr. Campbell, I think, was on the commission at that time.
Yes, he was.
Photos. That's Phil Pepe on the left with the sideburns. You can look at the hairstyles that they changed. I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah, there it is.
Robert Lipsyte from the Times, and that's Arthur Daly. And then Anderson was sitting to his right. So yeah, they really.
You see the cigar smoker right there too. That's cool.
Mhm.
Which cigars?
Yeah,
Hey, we have to make a pact though on this. We got a dress for the occasion.
Okay.
We
I'll
got
shave.
a
period dress.
the hats. We got a period dress for this occasion.
I like that.
Fun.
Yeah.
Come on.
I like that.
The golden age of boxing.
I like that.
well, Don Majewski and I have been speaking with all this situation going on in the world.
Mhm.
We are losing almost a whole year.
Yes, sure.
So we're gonna announce shortly the celebration. The WBC is gonna designate 2021 the year of boxing.
Mhm. Mhm.
We're gonna do a celebration of boxing worldwide, and we're gonna kick off with this 50th anniversary celebration of the greatest fight.
Mhm.
We also have Bob Arum and Don King celebrating 90 years
Mhm. Mhm.
Whoa.
birthday.
And it's the 100th anniversary of 𝗧𝗟𝗡𝗗 Carpentier, the first $1 Million Gate, one of the most significant fights in the culture of boxing.
100th anniversary of the fight. So I would like to invite you all in this call to be part of the committee for the celebration of the year of boxing. We're gonna need to go and research and get all those historic dates and celebrations and make a year worth of tributes, of events, of happenings, of remembrance. And I think there's no better way than doing it through celebrating boxing.
I'll do the art.
And Joe, could you like a wall for us? Like,
I'll do oh man, I got ideas are going through my mind already.
of course. Of course. That's amazing. That's really amazing. And we should have the convention right then.
Joel, when can you have a like a save the date for the year of boxing 2021?
Couple of weeks, Mauricio. I'll start working on it. I just did a beautiful painting for when I became a fight promoter in Las Vegas. I went to Mark Ratner, and he said to me, we will license you, but you have to be represented by a guy named Kirk Hendrick, who at the time was the lawyer for the Nevada Athletic Commission. And
Now,
Kirk had just gone to work for Dana White
Yeah.
at the UFC. And it's an incredible story because I actually just painted the UFC logo for Kirk. He commissioned me to paint it. So, and it was a beautiful painting. I'll send it all to you. And it's going to be a similar kind of energy. It'll take me about 3 weeks, Mauricio.
Okay.
But yeah, but I'm in that frame of mind because I'm fully in the fighting frame of mind.
Okay.
My mind, the concept of the WBC 100-year belt.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Centenary bell, yeah.
Was this
No,
definitely
I want to ask Don Majewski, as a segue to what Mauricio just said about the year of 100 years of boxing. When you said Charpentier, was that the same Charpentier, the French heavyweight, that battling Siki?
Yes,
That
that's correct.
battling Siki beat.
That is correct. So this is 82,000 people in New Jersey to see that fight. It broke all records at the time, but it established boxing. Gene Tunney also fought on the undercard of the show. I'll bring up two of our good friends also, their 90th birthday next year. Dick Cole, the longtime commissioner and referee and judge for the WBC, and 𝗧𝗢𝗨𝗡, the former boxing commissioner from Canada. So it's really a big year. You know, the Walker Law started the year before. I can bring this up. Maybe it's not the appropriate place, but it's also the 100th anniversary of the forming of the WBA, the NBA, which segued into the WBA, which actually gave birth to the WBC through all those mistakes. So we profited from their loss. But it's really remarkable year for boxing. Yeah.
Mauricio,
Yes.
the year of boxing 2021 may also be a good year to attempt to get the battling Siki honored and installed in the Boxing Hall of Fame. I know we've tried for many years. Your father tried. You know, he did beat Georges Charpentier when he came to New York and for a heavyweight championship fight. Then he was killed. But that recognition would be a great way to cap off the WBC's endeavors when they had the remains removed and shipped back to Senegal.
That's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to Don Majewski. He's got the juice.
Oh, listen, well, that year, 2021, they'll be putting in fighters who fought from 43 on. So he would probably be eligible. Well, at the end of that year, the vote would come in for him. So the end of 2021 to ask them to put him on the ballot.
All right, Don, you got that for action, Don.
Okay, we'll follow up. No problem.
Mauricio, I'm going to do you a beautiful painting, and Grant, I'm going to put a pair of Grant boxing gloves in that thing.
Okay.
That's great. I appreciate that.
Not even a quick. If I was ever going to be a fighter, and I would have wanted to wear Grant gloves. They're just mean. I don't know. Grant gloves are the best.
Thank you. Well, you know, I always give recognition where recognition is due. And when I was creating this company, because as a kid, I used to sell all the old brands from Mexico. That's how I started when I was 14. And I would sell Reyes and Casanova and M&M and all of those great brands from Mexico when they were in their heyday. And when I decided to start my own company, I went to Jose and I said to him, you know, I'm actually thinking about making my own gloves and my own company. And I worked on a few things and I wanted to show them to you and see what was your opinion. Because obviously Jose was like a father to me, and I respected him so much, and I knew that he was so knowledgeable about everything in boxing. So I showed it to him and he told me, well, I think you should do this. I think it would be better if you did that. Maybe you should do this. And anyway, I took a lot of the things that he advised me on and implemented them into the glove. And my idea when I started was to create the greatest boxing glove ever created. And by the grace of God and thanks to Jose, I was able to accomplish that. So
amazing, man.
Nice story, Grant.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone on this call remembers this, but 1960 in Rome and 1960, 1960 in Rome, 64. Where was Frazier's Olympics? I forgot.
Tokyo.
Tokyo, that's right. And then 1968 in Mexico.
Yep.
3 all-time great champions won their gold. Ali, and Frazier and George Foreman. And by the way, Ali won the light heavyweight gold medal, not the heavyweight. So,
Right.
but those were great Olympic years for all-time great fighters.
Yeah.
Well, we have great plans, and I'm gonna be bothering you. I'm gonna appoint Jill to be bothering you.
Joe.
Jill is good at that.
Father,
And I just cannot express how happy I have been this hour with you all. Uncle Bill, I love you. You know how much I love you. You are such an important member of my memories. You know, he took me to Disneyland when I was 8 years old with my brother Fernando.
Wow.
And Grant, you have been my older brother for a long time. Many great memories with Grant. He's a member of the Suleiman family. Don Majeski, they're simply, you are timeless, Don. You are unbelievably unique in this sport, and just all
That's a
the
very nice euphemism. Thank you very much there. It's like having a family reunion here. I thank you very much for inviting me. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a family reunion. Randy, you have been such a special friend. You did the WBC convention in New York, which was memorable. Maybe Don can wrap up this meeting with the remembrance of that dinner.
Oh, yes. Well, we've told the story,
Great
right,
story.
about, yes. Please
And
invite, yeah, your father.
Joe, thank you so much. Love you, Dad. Looking forward to see the art. It's going to be tremendous. And James, my brother, how proud to have been such a unbelievable times with your dad, and how you have followed his legacy, and you feel so proud always of your dad and in your name. That's something that we all share. And I'm just very happy, very thankful. Jill always
Thank you.
putting together this great panel, and Victor always facilitating. And
Thank you all.
all I can say is thank you so much for your time. And we're gonna finish this session with Don Majeski telling us about that dinner in New York.
Oh, boy.
Thank
It's
you
a little
all.
hot here. You want me to go into now? Look, we had the WBC was going to have the convention. I'll be really quick, in France, in Paris. And then all of a sudden they backed out. So we scrambled around last minute to find a place to do it. And I said, we've never done New York. I hope we can do another one, maybe the 60th anniversary. But so we scrambled around. We got New York. There was a guy named Abe Hirschfeld, who owned the Statler Hilton, then became the Pennsylvania Hotel. And you had to really deal with one person because they had the right to say yes or no on all the rooms we wanted, comp rooms with no casino. And he went along with it. And then we went and had a great dinner. And Marvin Cohn, who was at the member at the commission before you came in there, Randy, and I guess a short period while you were chairman. So we were hustling around, no money. And Jose said, we got to have the best dinner, pick the best place in town. We went to dozens of restaurants, and then Tavern on the Green came up as a possibility. Oh, that's fabulous. Okay, seats enough people. So we went to see the owner, who was a guy named Leroy, who was the man who actually got the idea to put Great Adventure, this big amusement park that's down in New Jersey, South Jersey, together. He was his father was Mervyn Leroy, a famous producer you probably knew, and I'm sure Bill heard of him, in the 1920s
Sure.
and 30s into the 40s. So he was a real showman. And he also owned the Russian Tea Room. So we're negotiating back and forth with this guy. He said, look, we're going to have everybody here. And your father said every great champion in the history of boxing will show up, and we'll have them here. So your dad said, now look, Don, this is the thing. We can't be inviting everybody. You can't invite all your friends. One ticket for you. Marvin can bring his wife. That's it. I'm only bringing select people. The 100 people we're going to have there. That's about it. So we start off, and we're going to charge what's going to be $100 a table, $100 a ticket. Then it went to 200, then 400, because the expense kept exponentially going out and out. We want the finest steak. We want the finest lobster. We want caviar. We want champagne, everything over the top. So he said, let's calculate this again. So it was $300, $400 a ticket, $500 a ticket. And then it comes on with the people who have friends of friends. All right, Don, make it 200. Call back and say we need 200. I changed it to 200. Don, call back. We need 400 people. Call again. Now I get on with the owner. Says, look, you can't do this. It's 400 people. You had 200 people. All right, I'll call you back and we'll finalize it. It got up to 700 people. Finally got to be 1,000 people. He said, I have to close the entire restaurant. He's 1,000 people. He said, my reservations here for a year. People come for anniversaries, for birthdays. I got to close everything. You want 1,000? Just do it. 1,000 people. Okay. The 1,000 people, 500. He's calculating. He said, $500 a ticket. So I want 500,000. The owner's thrilled. So then your dad says, look, he said, I have to invite this one for free and that one. I got a friend here and this one had a friend there. So I said, well, what are we going to do? He said, we can't charge 5. Let's make it 400. Make it. Now we go the opposite way. So it comes to the day and it's, I don't know, 1,100, 1,200 people coming to this affair. He says, oh, let everybody in for nothing. I said, everybody free. I call you free. You guys are out of your mind. So now we go to the thing and we go. He said, so everybody, whoever was put a boxing glove on in New York in the last 90 years heard about this dinner. So he said, let's go over early. We'll see them when they're setting up. Okay. So we come around at Central Park West as you go to the tavern, I'm going uptown. I said, look, there's a big crowd lined up here. They must be giving out something, some prizes or something. So yeah, traffic. He said, get out, let's walk. So we're about 4 blocks. And I start going down a block. I said, look, this guy, I know him. He's a sparring partner. He's online here. And I said, what the hell is he doing here? Next thing up, there's a guy who used to take the tickets at Gleason's Gym when it was up on, 149th Street in the Bronx. I said, this guy, I know all these people. This guy's like the porter in the Madison's who sweeps the floors. Everybody was there. I said, where are you guys going? Oh, they said, we're going to the big dinner that they're giving out for free at the Tavern on the Green. They had 2,000 people at the end of the day. Owner's going berserk. He says, look, this is crazy. He says, I can't charge you. If I charge you, you'd be bankrupt. I'm going to give you a deal. He said, I'm going to take 40% off the top. The bill was $180,000 and it didn't include the tip. Your dad wrote out the check. We had one hell of a dinner.
Wow, what a story.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What
everybody was there, I'll tell you that. They all showed up. Ryan O'Neal was there, and Dustin Hoffman was there.
What a story, Don. That's the
great.
Oh. I don't think we're after this one.
What year was that, Don?
That was, what was it, Maurice? About 70, 80? Was it 80 or 70s? Early 81, 82, maybe, something like that. I can check it out. About 80, maybe 82, 1982, I think. Tavern on Green is now gone.
Jill wasn't born then either.
Yeah. Still not.
I'm doing your PR.
Mauricio.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Let's do
That
it.
was one hell of a story, man. I gotta tell you, I love that story.
Well, with the inflation, we're going to buy a restaurant and hold the next dinner there.
Yeah, right.
Thank you so very much. Have a great one. And we will be in touch, okay?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Everyone stay healthy.
Well, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Nice.
Well done.
Very nice.
Very
Great picture, yeah.
Beautiful.
And Jill, I mean that whenever you need something with either the Boxing Illustrated on radio or Sirius XM, you just let me know. We'll work it right in.
That's beautiful, Randy. Thank you.
You got it. Love you guys. Be safe.
We love
Bye,
you,
everybody.
Randy. Be well.
Stay safe. Be hep.
Thank you, Jill. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Victor.